77 more than this time last year. The Australian Medical Association is urging people to speak up and step in to save lives on our roads this holiday season. They're doing this in conjunction with the Road Trauma Support Group in New South Wales. Duncan Wakes-Miller is a co-founder of that group after Duncan himself lost his 17-year-old son after he accepted a lift. Duncan joins me now. Good morning to you. Thanks so much for your time, Duncan.
Thank you, Mel. Good morning to you. Some quite alarming statistics there, but they belie the human impact. And it was interesting that, in fact, 349 people have been killed on New South Wales roads in the last year, and 9,663 people have been seriously injured and gone to New South Wales hospitals. So this is quite a catastrophe, and the impact, as you can see from those people who've contacted you, it impacts other people as well, friends, family, loved ones, and it is such a huge issue. It really is something that needs to be addressed, and for too long that hasn't happened, and there's plenty of things we can do right now as a community in the short term, immediately today, and there's stuff that we can and need to do for the future.
Tell us, Duncan, about the results of this survey that was done, this study by the Road Trauma Support Group New South Wales, about how many people thought it was okay to get a lift with someone who should not be driving if it's their only way to get home.
Too many people. I think the number of people who believe it's okay to drink and drive is between 7 and 15% of the New South Wales population. And so there's an alarming number of people who think it's okay.
Who think they are not impaired and they might not get caught, so, yeah.
Yeah, they think they might not get caught, but there's about 30 years of evidence that suggests that if you're drinking, then you will be impaired. We don't let people shoot guns or drive complicated machinery such as airplanes if they've had a drink of any nature. So why should we let people get behind a car? These cars are lethal weapons, and it's not acceptable under any circumstance.
It's really terrifying that so many people think, yes, it's acceptable to drive after drinking, but also the number of people who say they would get a lift with someone who shouldn't be driving, that even if they're not the driver, they think, oh, well, I'll risk my life by being a passenger in this car.
Yeah, I mean, that's up to 12% in some areas, and that is absolutely frightening because there's too many people dying. I mean, we're approaching getting one person dying a day in New South Wales, and if the trend is going in that direction, that's what's going to happen. We need to change attitudes to drink driving and impaired driving and dangerous driving in the same way that we've changed perceptions around domestic violence. It's something that is socially unacceptable, and no one should do it. Years ago, if there was an argument next door, you do nothing and you'd ignore it. Nowadays, people call the police and domestic violence gets addressed. We've changed it with one-punch laws. We've changed it even with seatbelts. People didn't think they needed to use them. So we can change this, and we need people to speak up and step in and stop doing it. I mean, it's really, really simple. Just don't drive impaired, don't drive aggressively, and save lives. There's too many people dying. I put it to people who are cynical of this and say, oh yeah, I'll be all right. I put it to them, would they like to go to the morgue at Christmas and identify a member of their family? Because that's what's going to happen if people continue to behave like this on the road. In New South Wales it's not just a human right, it's actually a privilege, and you're driving a dangerous weapon. You need to take care, and people need to speak up and step in to stop this happening.
You want harsher penalties, don't you? You think that would be a deterrent? You think that would make a difference?
Well, I think there's evidence says that deterrents work. When you have double demerits, people reduce their speed, people behave better on the roads, people drive better.
As we heard from that texter saying, I lost my licence and I've never really speeded since. Yeah.
So we know that deterrents do work, and so I think it's about making sure that they're effective and fair, and make sure that they do prohibit people, particularly in high-risk groups where you've got young men whose brains aren't fully developed and they take risky behaviour, is if they're getting into a car with a whole bunch of friends and those friends are all aware that if he kills someone or he does something really dangerous, then he's going to go to jail, they might stop him doing that. So I think it's not about having some fabulous advertising campaign. It's about systemic change, about education from young people in schools all the way through to better early driving courses, and making sure that there's really strong legislation so that people know that if they do something bad and they kill someone or seriously injure someone in the car, they will face a severe punishment. Now, the other piece that is really important here is policing. And I think one of your listeners said they hadn't seen any police recently.
Yeah.
The NRMA have come out with a report recently saying that public policing and RBTs does make a difference. If you're seeing police around, people are less likely to drink and drive. And alarmingly, there's been a massive reduction in the number of RBTs.
Oh, it's huge, and police have conceded that. It's enormous, the drop in RBTs on pre-pandemic levels, yeah.
Well, are we blaming everything now on the pandemic now?
No, I think it's just a marker in time, that's all, Duncan. Yeah, but so in the past few years they've said due to staffing issues, I think it's dropped about 34% or something.
So I'm not too sure it is a staffing issue. I'm not too sure it is a resourcing issue. And I'm not too sure I'm bothered either way. The fact of the matter is there's less policing out there, there's less RBTs happening, and there's more people dying. And I think that's the issue, is somehow between government, between police and everyone else, we need to be speaking up, stepping in and making change happen. If it's not us, then who is going to do this and when are we going to do it? And the police, the first responders, we don't want them to be going to these horrible incidents in the middle of the night or at any stage. So we need to do this collectively and we need to do this together. The Road Trauma Support Group, we pick up when the flashing lights go away and the families are devastated, and we help families pick up the pieces and survive in the future. This is not something you get over when you get someone violently killed or injured in a serious way. It takes away a lot of your life, and we help people recover. And this is a massive, massive issue impacting thousands and thousands of people in New South Wales today.
Yeah. Duncan, just finally, the road toll over the weekend, horrific. It did cover the gamut of victims, from older people who'd suffered medical episodes to younger people, teenagers, to single vehicle accidents, cars v trucks, the whole lot. But we have this issue, don't we, that you know about all too well, of young teenagers, P-platers we've seen here last year, and it's only recently drawn to a conclusion with the driver finally sentenced. 5 teenagers from the same school killed in that terrible accident in Buxton last year. Your own son killed in a car accident where he got into a car with someone who'd been drinking. How do we get that through to young people? Do not be a passenger in a car with people who are either impaired or reckless or being stupid.
Well, I think some of it comes down to peer pressure in terms of not letting them do that. We know that we've changed the narrative around consent, around domestic violence, but also we do need serious penalties for this. The driver who killed my son was a drunk driver, driving fast, ignoring the warnings of the passengers in the car, and he killed my son. He was not breathalyzed by the police. He walked free. He now lives on Collaroy Plateau on the northern beaches, and no one would know that within that community there's a drunk driver who's a killer walking amongst them. And we need to change that, because if people got given appropriate sentences, then other people would go, I don't want to be like that. And we need to criminalise it, because vehicular death is not seen as homicide, and this is vehicular homicide. A death by a car is not a lesser species of homicide.
Yeah. Duncan, I really appreciate you talking this morning and making us all more aware of how careful we have to be, particularly this holiday period. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you so much indeed. Thank you. Good morning.
Duncan Wakes-Miller, who's the co-founder of the Road Trauma Support Group New South Wales.